Okay, got quorum.
It's 8 o'clock.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Wastewater Reclamation Department's Advisory Committee on September, I think we're on the 26th of
September?
Did I say September?
I thought I heard September.
Well, you could tell me where.
I think it's May. I think we're in May.
Hey, this is the problem with retirement. Anyhow, welcome. It is now May the 26th, 2022. Just please mute your microphones. This will help ensure we do not have any feedback or other background noises to interfere with the speaker. If a committee member would like to ask a question, please use your raise the hand feature. Please remember to lower your hand once your question has been disabled. When you're ready to speak, please unmute your microphone. This is especially important during votes, but don't forget to mute yourself when finished. As a reminder, audience members are only permitted to speak during the call to the audience unless called upon by the committee. This meeting is being recorded to satisfy the open meeting law requirements. On the call to order, we have quorum and roll call, Victoria. Or Veronica.
Scott Waldendorf,
Here.
Claire Zucker,
Here.
Steve Foley,
Here.
Allison Jones,
Here.
Rob Kulikowski,
Here.
Armando Membria, Armando, Asia Philbin,
Here.
Mark Taylor,
Here.
Henry Wolf,
Here.
Fred Marin,
Here.
and I'll go back to Armando. Are you there?
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay, we'll proceed with our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's see, call to the audience. Does anybody have any comment or thing they need to talk about? And call to the. And Armando, thank you for coming. Any call to the audience?
Armando has his hand up.
Okay, Armando, you have a question?
Are you muted?
I don't see his hand. Well, there's his hand. Is he dropped him? Okay, we'll proceed over to our safety share. Does anybody have a safety share?
I'll do a pretty serious one, just, in light of, continued sad news, what happened in Texas here the other day. Just a safety share, just not only at work, but in your personal life too. Pay attention to people and their demeanors and changes in personalities or issues and stress and depression and that type of things. And just be aware of how people are and just be more cognizant of the people around you and intervene where you can and try and point people in the right direction if they're having some challenges. So that's my safety share.
And also, I'd just like to add to Jackson's comment, if you see somebody's having a difficult time or concern, please bring it to someone's attention, and then they can assist and all that too. Any other safety shares? Okay. Then proceeding on to our next approval of the minutes, hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to read through the minutes of, April, the 28th. Has anybody had any comments, amendments, adjustments, or anything like that, for the minutes from last month? Okay, hearing no comments, do I have a motion, to approve the minutes?
I'll
This
move
is
to approve.
I'll
Claire's
second.
approved of the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Allison.
Very good. Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstains?
I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Rob. Okay, the minutes from last month so passed. Next on the agenda is the director's update. Jackson, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Scott. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I thought, since I was not on last month's agenda and did not present, I'll talk for about an hour this go around, make up for last time. Just kidding, it won't be that bad. But I had to present the department's budget in front of the board here a couple weeks ago. And I thought I would just run through that. I have a PowerPoint presentation, but I did not provide the presentation to the board. We were asked not to provide any PowerPoint, but I'm going to kind of run through it because it's a lot of the stuff that I talked about. But I'll just kind of go through it very quickly, and feel free to stop me as I go, or for sure at the end we'll have any questions. But I started, because there are some fairly new members on the board that don't have the history, 3 new board members, fairly new. And yeah, they had a budget hearing last year, but this one is kind of a big deal in the county because of inflation. A lot of the budgets are being increased and the amount of dollars are going up. So I started with our vision. I read to them our vision, and it's good to repeat that to this committee as well. And that's to be an industry leader in the management and sustainability of the water reclamation cycle and other renewable resources. And throughout my presentation, I focused on renewable resources. And then I told them our mission was to protect the public health, safety, and the environment by providing quality service, environmental stewardship, and renewable resources. There again, it's just some tidbits of facts. Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta change my clicker here. I've been reminded. Oops, sorry. Oh, it's not working now. It's not. For a minute doing our practice. Guess what?
I get to do it.
We'll let you change. One more, go again. And so I just started providing various comments or tidbits of information. And one is that wastewater provides service to more than 3/4 of Pima County's households and businesses. We maintain over $1.2 billion worth of assets, which includes, again, our 3,500 miles of conveyance pipelines, 2 regional and 5 sub-regional water reclamation facilities, 22 pump stations, 32 odor control sites, and we treat over 60 million gallons a day of sewage. We produce high-quality water that is distributed through Tucson Water's reclaim system for turf irrigation, and we also use the water for riparian habitat restoration and for recharging the aquifer, for which we earn water storage credits. We comply with all state and federal regulations. We operate a state-of-the-art Arizona certified laboratory where we perform more than 49,000 regulatory compliance analyses. We operate our entire system 24/7 365 or 24/7 365, which are the same thing, but they're said differently. And we have not raised our sewer user fees in 6 years, including next year's budget request. Our services are important because they will, a well-run sewer utility plays a critical role in protecting public health. It protects the environment by recycling our most precious resource, which is of course water. Reclaimed water can be used to sustain and improve aquatic and wildlife habitats. Biosolids are applied to agriculture land. And RWRD participated with the University of Arizona in sampling and analyzing sewage to help detect COVID levels in the community. Let's see, RWRD completed a biogas project in which processed gas is converted into clean burning renewable fuel, methane. This is delivered to customers through Southwest Gas Pipeline, and the department gets a pretty nice revenue as a result of that stream. Capital improvement projects such as sewer line extensions to the fairgrounds and providing capacity to the aerospace corridor and capacity increase to Continental Ranch Pump Station, enhance economic development and jobs in the county. RWRD is committed to seeking efficiencies in all we do to provide the residents of Pima County full services of outstanding quality while entering our 6th year without increasing sewer user or connection fees. We review our staffing needs continuously to ensure we have the appropriate personnel resources placed where needed. The department has reduced our total FTE count for fiscal year 23 down to 401, a reduction of 50 positions in the past 5 years. We continue to look towards technology as a way to find additional efficiencies, cost savings, and reductions in our carbon footprint. Animox, solar drying of biosolids, smart covers in our conveyance system, and the potential for direct potable reuse are all some of the things that we focus on. And then that was kind of the tidbits and points I provided to the board. And then I went in and talked about our budget, and that's the slide that's up here right now. And these are the top items, and again, this group for the most part is very familiar with all these, but you can see our largest item is personnel services at 35%. Then we get into repair and maintenance at 12%. Energy is 8% of our budget request for next year. Billing services is 6%. Chemicals are 6%. The contract with our Agua Nueva operator is 6%. And then they just go down from there in decreasing order. But it gives you an idea of where the focus of our O&M expenses are. Next slide, please. In the end, when I went in there, I told them we only need about $170 million to run our business, but about 91 million is for operations and maintenance costs, and the rest is for debt service. But you can see on this, it's kind of small, but at the bottom in the first column, it's 86.5 million. That's what the current fiscal year O&M budget is. And next year, we're asking for almost 91.5, not quite a $5 million increase. But just over 5%, and that is strictly attributed to inflationary changes. And you can kind of go through and see, like personnel services increased 3.8%. And I'm going to come back and talk about personnel services because it's an important topic right now. Repair and maintenance went up 20+%, and that's where a lot of inflationary increases were. Energy actually didn't have as much inflationary increase, but because we've added unit processes, in particular the biosolids, Neuresis is a little bit older, but we didn't have a full budget for that last year, so some of it's in this 10%. IT was about 10%. Building services went up 3%. Some of them weren't as bad. Here, chemicals went up 34+%. So some pretty big deals out there And that's caused the increase in requests, but we were able to do it and still not have to raise rates, so a good sign. So, this is a history of our O&M request. You can see this is at the first year after ROMP, where we had a lot of our big facilities were under warranty services, a 1-year warranty, so we had a big savings in our operating cost. But as we've got after our warranties expired, we've been kind of in that $84 million range. And here in this fiscal year 2021, we actually were asked to decrease our budget because of COVID, and so we did. And the next year, we made up for what we took out for COVID, and we started seeing inflation, and so we went upwards of the 86.5 million, and now we're asking almost for 91.5 million. Here's a history of our FTEs. You can see we 495 back in 13-14, and now we're down at 401 out here at next year's requested budget. And here, the other line is just the expenditures for the personnel budget in millions of dollars. CIP budget, again, coming off of ROMP, this is the closure or the finishing touches on ROMP. And we've been in this 45 to 50-ish range of capital expenditure, and you can see, you know, fairly consistent, but we are starting to see that creep up a little bit. Here's the user fees. This was the last change. It was a 3% increase on June 1st of 2017. And since that time, the formula for determining a bill has stayed the same. Rate workbook I won't get into, but that's one that this committee works on a lot with finance. Here's a few of the things that we plan operationally. You know, we talked about a solar dryer out at treatment, which would make a Class A biosolid and open up markets for us to dispose of Class A biosolids. And hopefully that's something that we will fit in to next year's capital expenditure. We also, the side stream treatment, that's the Animox, that's the low energy nitrification, denitrification process that we hope to implement, and it has other benefits. We're also working at increasing our recharge capacity of our water and doing a project maybe with Metro for recharging additional water, just to further increase how much recharge credits we get each year, and doing the same out at Green Valley. So those are some things in the treatment area. Conveyance is continuing to work on their programs, and a big one is, you know, they've been still trying to optimize the chemical use for odors. We cut way back on that year when we had to make cuts for COVID. We thought we could try some new winter, summer type seasonal changes in chemical addition, and we found that our winters aren't as cool as they used to be, and so we still need a little more chemical than we thought, but they continue to work on that. We've got some new sites for pump stations that we inherited, and so they continue to grow their system, but still manage to keep their costs in a pretty tight range. And tech services is mostly budgeted for personnel costs. They don't have a lot of equipment or other costs other than what's out here at the lab, maybe in the Creo area. And I'm going to get back to personnel because that's, you can unshare it if you will. The point I wanted to bring up about personnel services is last year in October, the county gave pretty much a 5% across the board increase to employees. Share it up there for some reason. You guys still see the presentation, or are you just seeing us?
We see you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties this morning. Iterate with that 5% increase in general. That's where you saw the slight increase in our request for O&M costs for wages and benefits. But right now, the board at their next agenda item, I think June 7th, I think is the next board meeting. They are gonna be talking about 3 potential options again for employee wage increases. And typically when they do those, it's always, okay, departments, here's what the board approved for employee increases, wage increases. You need to find a way to cover it in your budget. They don't give you more money to your budget. They say cut some things. And it's always a period of time, thank you, Alice, it's a period of time that gets my blood pressure up because they often, like right now, one of the things they said is, all right, all departments to help pay for the potential raises that are coming, we want to take your vacant positions that you are not actively recruiting. Well, we're actively recruiting all of our positions. Some of them have been recruiting for months because it's hard to get applicants for some of those positions. But I'm gonna have to fight tooth and nail to say, sorry, we can't do that. There was a comment that the vacancy savings, which we always have, as you know, this year, we're running about a $1 million vacancy savings, which would come close to covering the potential raises that the board is discussing. But there's a statement that you can only use 2 months equivalent or less than 20% of your vacancy savings. And I don't know why or how these kind of statements come out, but that's what's in the memo that the county administrator sent to the board in their discussion. So I'm sure there's some reason behind it, but we have to figure out how we're gonna cover those expenses. And every year, as I showed in that slide, we've given up 50 positions in the last 5 years. We don't wanna, we can't bleed ourselves of people that won't allow us to do the work that we're required to do. And I think we run a very lean ship and a very appropriately staffed and sized ship. And we have more vacancies that we like. We see overtime going up. We're paying for contracted services at a higher rate than we would pay people. None of it that makes good business sense. So it's just going to be an interesting discussion with county administration and finance on how we deal with whatever ultimately the board settles on for raises, if in fact they approve raises. So I just want to give you that heads up that, the budget for employee expenses is going up, but the budget doesn't go up. We're just expected to cover that increase that's likely to happen. So with that, I'll shut up. I talk too much and I'll answer questions on my presentation to the board, if any of you have questions.
Thank you, Jackson. Does anybody have any questions for Jackson?
I also have one more item still on my update, so.
Okay, go ahead, Jackson.
The next item is CIP consolidation, and as you know, we have our capital improvement program. And recently, county administration has requested that there was a group, they're now called Capital CPO, I think, Capital Program Office. They used to be Program Management Office, so they have a different acronym. They used to take care of capital improvement projects for some of the smaller departments, but larger departments like in public works like ourselves or like DOT, we managed our own capital projects. And recently in DOT, they had retirements and people, attrition, and people in that section of their business left. So they decided that central projects office could take on, rather than restaffing DOT, they took on those projects within that group. And they actually were taking one of DOT's employees to help them with that. And then that employee retired or left. So they had to go hire staff to help them do what they needed to do to keep up with DOT's demand. But then they thought, no, this is a good time to consolidate all of public works into this effort. And so they took 2 of our positions that just became vacant so that they could do some of our projects as well. We still fought hard to continue managing our own job contracts where we do rehab, especially like in the sewer system where we hire these 3 jocks that we keep going with our business on keeping things up. And we still manage that part of it. But some of the big projects have been handed over to them. For instance, one of those is the Canoa Ranch sewer extension that's scheduled for next year. That's about a $7 million project, and that CPO group is gonna manage that. And then, you know, if we do the solar project for solar drying and biosolids, the CPO group may manage that one as well. But at any rate, we've just gone through this directive to, we're gonna manage some of our projects and CPO is gonna manage some of our projects. So it's just additional complexities in communication and coordination. And we'll work through it. We're in that transition now. We've already given positions. We were not allowed to fill some of our vacant positions, so we gave them to that group. And I believe they're trying to fill them just like anyone else. And officially, I think next fiscal year, which is only a few weeks away, maybe 5 weeks away, that's when it's all on. And during the subcommittee, and I don't want to steal the subcommittee's thunder, but this did come up as they were scheduling future meetings, and I just reminded them that they would have to coordinate the meeting schedules also by including the CPO. And of course, we'll do that, but I'm just kind of wanted them to understand there was going to be a third party involved in this committee's responsibility for capital budgets and capital projects. So that's kind of just a real brief summary, and I'll take questions on that topic as well.
Does anybody have any questions for Jackson on any of this?
I do. This is Allison. Jackson, does the CPO office have all the expertise they need for all these various types of projects? I mean, it seems like it's a huge scope and you'd need some very broad bases of knowledge to deal with all of that.
Yeah, I have mixed emotions about it, but the county historically has been big on consolidations of certain functions. And, back many years ago, they consolidated finance and ITD and procurement and HR, and all of the county departments lost staff that performed those functions. And just like now, Wastewater does not have finance staff, and the finance department participates in our meetings because that's a part of the business that you guys are very focused on, and they have a key role in that, so that's why they're there. But then the counties also consolidated, like more recently, they consolidated the development service department, took our, plan reviews and stuff, and they do that for us, and we don't do that. They took our community relations group and added them into the county's communications department. I don't know, I think one other I'm just forgetting off the top of my head. But it's not unusual that they do it, and now the central project group, they're having to staff up. Allison, the answer to your question is they're having to staff up to be able to do it. But at the same time, DOT lost their institutional knowledge and their resources to retirement and other reasons. And then word of saying, Adam Blevin has presented to this group. He headed up our capital projects effort. He retired, and they took that vacant position. We also lost a couple of other, I think 3 others now that we've lost. And so, as we're saying, hey, we have to fill to keep up with our demand of the capital work we have, we're really stretched to do that. So we're going to have to depend on them, but they're going to have to hit the ground running with people. And how that's going to work out is a question mark that hopefully will make work. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Asia and Henry have their hand up.
Asia, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question, I guess, and even a comment. So when we did discuss this in the CIP subcommittee, we did have concerns about this to Allison's question, kind of how that's going to work. I think I've mentioned many times that I'm on the committee. I'm the AZ Water related appointee, right, which is water and wastewater professional organization. So I'm really familiar with all the training, right, that goes into being a water wastewater engineer, just the kind of size of the technological conferences and things that are changing. So from my point of view, it would be very important to have somebody involved in the CIP process, who's very familiar with wastewater, both the engineering and I think also the operations, the fact that the engineers in the department are dealing regularly with the operators, and those who maintain the systems are really familiar with the challenges. Anyway, so those are a couple of the things that came up in the CIP subcommittee. And as Jackson mentioned, we were aware now that we'll be including this other party in the subcommittee review, and that's a scheduling thing. But also we were interested in learning more about how this is going to work. And typically our meetings would be scheduled, maybe every 6 months. And we're talking about meeting January or December, maybe of 22, January of 23. But we were thinking it would be good to hear about that, how this is going to work sooner. So, we kind of thought that would be a full committee thing, that the full committee might be interested in that too. So I just wanted to bring that up and see what the full committee thinks about it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Asia. Anne Marie, do you have a question?
Actually, I have a comment, and I'll follow up with Asia, because this consolidation actually concerns me quite a bit, because I don't like seeing the expertise pulled out of the department and having it consolidated in a large group that might not have the expertise. And the other thing that concerns me is that by ordinance, this is something that is under our purview, and I think that perhaps we should remind management about that. We usually don't comment on things like this, but I'm looking at the ordinance, and we have specific duties here where we're supposed to review and recommend to the governing body an annual and 5-year capital program. And then we're supposed to review and report to the governing body on the long-term 10-year capital needs. So this directly affects some of our responsibilities. So I think at a minimum, we need to have a presentation on how this new group is going to work with us. And we may consider actually going further and making a recommendation that this stays with the department so we can make sure we continue our oversight of these capital improvement programs. So.
Thank you very much, Anne Marie. Mark, you had a comment or question?
Greatly reduced after Asia and Anne Marie. Yeah, I think absolutely we need some kind of, I wasn't able to make the CIP meeting. So this is new to me. So I would really like to understand much more on how this affects the department and what this CPO group is going to be doing. And I think it's just because I don't understand it. I always knew what Adam did. And I just can't imagine this group doing something that isn't a wastewater engineer and very familiar with the department and very familiar with wastewater. Not only doing the CIP projects, but overseeing them. So I may be misunderstanding a lot of this. Is this department, obviously it sounds like they're developing and making the decisions on the CIP projects and priorities. Are they also overseeing the CIP projects construction and administration? Am I hearing that right?
The central projects office manages basically now most every public work project is kind of the scope that they're going to be handed, other than the limited scope that wastewater is maintaining that I tried to allude for. And that's where we're still making sure we're aligned on. I find it hard to say, okay, we'll go do these handful of projects if they don't have the staff or the expertise to do it. So it's kind of this transitional piece, and Nancy Cole is the lady that heads that up. And so her and I have a number of meetings, and her and I are in the management team and wastewater. We're meeting again next month of June to go through the kickoff for the new fiscal year and how they're going to accomplish what we're tasking them or they've been tasked with accomplishing.
I mean, I just can't imagine this being more efficient. I don't, usually as departments go forward and evolve, they go for more efficiency and better quality and operation. This to me just sounds like it's going backwards. Unless I'm missing something major, I just can't imagine how this is better. And that's too bad we going the wrong direction. Do you know if, other departments have done this with other, wastewater entities and cities? And have we seen if this has been done successfully in the past?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that, Mark. I don't know. I haven't benchmarked that, delivery method or that, organizational structure. So I couldn't answer that question.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think I agree with Anne Marie, everybody spoke so far. I think we should have a presentation on it and understand it better. And I think that, if we truly understand and do believe this isn't the best thing for wastewater and the populace to have an efficient running system, I think it's our responsibility as a group to maybe put that to writing to the right people and at least give people our thoughts on it.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Jackson? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to the next thing on the agenda, which is the CIP subcommittee report by Asia. Asia, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I think, Anne Marie, you had your hand up again, or did you want to say something before I go?
No, go ahead, Asia.
Okay. So yeah, the CIP subcommittee met last week. We had presentations, just what we talked about just now came up in that meeting. And I'm hoping that we can have a little bit more discussion on whether the full committee will want to hear more about that, or how we'll be able to do that in the full committee. We had presentations on the long range plan, the wastewater facility plan, and the CIP budget, which is also part of the materials that were distributed for the full committee. Talked about some increasing costs, right? Mostly inflationary, and I think Jaime had said that a large part of that is in particular plastic, pipe, and one project alone, there was an $800,000 increase in the project. There was some due diligence following up with a contractor who had used force majeure as like the item to increase that cost. And the department found that they could not buy pipe any cheaper than this cost increase. And actually all of the costs that they identified were higher than what the contractor was going to do. So the contractor might even be taking a loss on this. And that's something I think that keeping an eye into the future and what the cost of projects might be because of the rising cost of materials and other things. I think there's also some concrete locally, some bottlenecks in that kind of material. So that's going to be challenges for the group moving forward. We heard also, well, as Jackson just mentioned, about personnel and some changes there. And then we sort of postponed we tentatively decided that we would meet in December or January, depending on what the full committee wanted to do about this other item. And that's what I have to report from the CIP subcommittee. Scott, I don't know if you want to open it to questions from the.
All right, thank you, Asia. Does anybody have any questions? Anne Marie, did you have a question for Asia?
Not for Asia, but as a committee member, I would just like to request that we put this, and I know we'll have agenda items coming up, but I think we need to have this on our next full committee agenda and request a presentation on this and how this is going to function, how it's going to increase the efficiency of these projects, how the expertise is going to be maintained, and also how they're going to interact with this committee so we can meet our requirements that are in the ordinance to review and recommend on these capital improvement projects.
This is Allison. I totally agree with what Anne Marie just said. I want to hear more.
This is Claire, and I haven't spoken up, but I am totally on board with this as well, and it makes me very nervous.
So we'll take this as our future agenda item in advance, and we'll make sure it's added on, so we'll shoot for June, and hopefully we can get that presentation for you at that time.
Right.
And of course, it's gonna be Nancy Cole will be asked to come and present that to you guys.
Okay.
And just while we're still on the CIP topic, I just wanted to mention that, you know, the approved capital budget for wastewater this current fiscal year is right around 48 million. And next year, when we just presented the budget to you for next year's capital, it was 56 million. And because of, a number of reasons, and one of them being the pipe comment that Asia made, that in order to finish the old Nogales, Raytheon or aerospace corridor project, because of that big jump in pipe pricing to finish that project off and some other inflationary increases, we wanted to spend some more money this year. So the 48 million is now 50 million, and next year's 56 was reduced to 54. So basically, we pulled 2 million ahead to make sure we can get the pipe orders and keep that project going, among some other things. So just it's kind of a minor detail, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware that we pulled 2 million from next year into this year, and hopefully that's where everything will be for, as we continue our capital program.
Very good. Thank you, Jackson, and thank you, Anne Marie. Mark, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, a couple of questions for Asia, and as you know, I mentioned I wasn't able to make this CIP meeting, so this is new to me. I guess my first question is, I remember when we used to go through the CIP projects, they'd be pages long, at least 3 pages long. If I'm seeing right, I only see this one single page with a few line items as compared to the detail we used to see. Has something changed where we're not seeing the detail on the individual projects anymore? Or is there just only a few projects and that's all that's being done?
Thanks for that question, Mark. Yeah, maybe this could be just my being the new committee, subcommittee chair. And I had asked that would this be shared, but we could share the full presentation of what was given to the CIP subcommittee, like the PowerPoint slides. Is that what you would be looking for?
I don't know what's missing since I wasn't there, but it just seemed like we had much more detail in the past than what we're seeing today. So I didn't know if the detail was there or was given to the committee and we just don't see it today or what. But I think if there is additional detail, it'd be good to, provide that to the committee as a whole. Maybe that's the next meeting.
Can I make a comment though? This meeting was our 10-year plan. When we did the 5-year capital improvement projects, that presentation was made to the committee. I don't know if you remember that, Mark. That was a few months ago. When we had our subcommittee back in December for the 5-year capital improvement projects, then there was the presentation, all the details. This meeting in May is when we just review the 10-year plan. And the 2 projects that were given there were changes in those projects. So that's why they were highlighted this time.
That explains it. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's why you don't have a big list. The big list and there was that presentation, I think in January, maybe Veronica can remember when we had it, but I think it was we usually have our detailed meeting in December, January, and then the full committee gets the highlights from that.
Perfect.
So,
okay, that answers that question. That makes total sense now.
Yep.
And then my second question is really related to the large projected increase. Obviously, I think it's all because of Wastewater Reclamation facility, and looks like it's 26, 27, 28 when it looks like it's going up. It's almost like a little mini ramp, I guess. I was curious of what does that mean when it comes to financing? Are we going to go back and develop some very large bonding for these future projects, or maybe it's way ahead of time, but I was curious what we're thinking about for the large increase coming up.
Mark, that's a good question. We didn't really talk about that at the CIP subcommittee, and I'm not sure if that would be, I think it's both, right? It's a capital improvement project, but also the finance subcommittee probably would make sense to take a look at that too. And I just also wanted to mention, we had the big item really was this idea of the, or how the CIP projects will be treated in the future. But something else that did come up that was, and then what Anne Marie just talked about, the two projects that are changing that are highlighted on the sheet. And then in addition, I think the Jackson shared that they are looking at these regional and sub-regional facilities, kind of, again, maybe with a new, taking a little bit of a new look at that. So there's both the financing, I think, and how the, conveyance and where things will be collected and treated in the future is sort of a big picture thing that the department is looking at that came up in the CIP subcommittee. So yeah, Jackson, maybe you could, in terms of Mark's question on how that things will be financed, can you answer that here or?
And I really wasn't expecting an answer this early.
Okay.
It's something that I thought is something, when that time comes or as we go forward, curious where things are looking, and maybe Jackson, you can answer it now or in the future. It's just something I was starting to think about, is seeing the big numbers out in front of us.
Okay, does Anne Marie, did you have an additional question for Asia?
I have one more thing
Sorry.
just to finish real quick. Sounds like we don't have an answer for that last one. That's fine. But I am curious of the percent increase that we're seeing in inflation right now. I'm dealing with a lot of other municipalities that are saying, oh my gosh, we're having 10, 20% increase in some of the costs that were expected previously. Do we have any kind of a number of what we're seeing for increased cost to CIP projects? And is that affecting us where we're going to have to push out or reduce the amount of projects that are planned to be built or needed?
Yeah, so let me answer that. And, Heine shared a bit of information with me too, where, different publications are showing projects as high as a 42% increase. And it's across the board different depending on the type of project. And of course, anything with plastic and petroleum based is to the moon. And the example that Heine had used before was that aerospace corridor project. We had a contract in place, and the pipe, I think it's 36-inch pipe we were buying, plastic pipe, was like 86 cents a foot. I'm sorry, yeah, 86 cents a foot. And it went up with that force majeure, it went up to $1.82 a foot. And we still had 7,000 feet of pipe to purchase. So that was a nice $800,000+ increase to that. That's a $40-some million project, but that's a big increase. And one of the things that we're doing this coming month, we have a meeting set with the leadership here in Wastewater to reevaluate our capital projects due to inflationary concerns and make sure we have them prioritized appropriately. And if any of them we really think are significantly escalated in price, is there any way or reason we should try to delay them? And as we get those evaluations performed and conversations had, obviously we'll share that with this committee. But we're looking at those type of things, Mark, because we're worried about the same thing.
All right, yeah, it's pretty prevalent everywhere. Everybody's having this problem and readjusting. But yeah, thanks, Jackson.
I'd hate to think that, just arbitrarily pick, if there's a 15% increase, I'd hate to think we can only go do 85% of our projects next year because we have to back off 15%, but that's the type of conversation we have to have, so.
Yeah, and that's just what I was wondering, is how much we're gonna have to push out these projects, and are they really needed projects? Or do we just need to increase the, you are definitely showing increase of somewhat of the CIP, but does that need to go up more in order to maintain the level of service we need?
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any additional comments for Asia on the CIP? Okay, hearing no other comments, next on the agenda is the Financial Subcommittee report. He's not here. Do we have a?
They haven't met.
Okay, so we are going to bypass the Financial Subcommittee report. I understand they have not met, and Matt is not here today. Next on the agenda is the financial year 21-22 expense and revenue summary with Robert. Robert, it's all yours, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Robert Salaji. I'm a supervisor for the Department Analysis Division, and I'm going to be filling in for Mandy for this period. Okay, so let me share my screen with everyone. Okay, so this is the revenue and expenditure forecast for period 10. So as you can see, it's pretty similar to last period. We're forecasting our total O&M expenses at $85,626,000, which is a savings of $908,000. And the primary driver to that is the vacancy savings due to a number of retirements and turnovers. Then we have our total O&M expenditures, which includes contras, depreciation, and debt service. That's $164,581,000. And again, we're to the positive of $476,000. And again, the primary driver to that is also related to our vacancy savings. And the revenues, we're forecasting $190,676,000. And that's to the positive notion of $3,481,000. And the primary drivers of that are our capital contributions, which we're receiving additional public sewer facilities from various builders, and from interest rates and our market adjustments with our interest investments. Any questions?
Does anybody have any additional questions for Robert on expenses and revenue?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda is the Citizens Water Advisory Committee, CWAC, with Allison Jones. Allison, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. CWAC met on May 4th, and John Kamik, the acting director, gave his usual report. He spoke about recent mayor and council meetings where mayor and council renewed an intergovernmental agreement with the USGS regarding Santa Cruz River gauging and subsidence monitoring. They gave mayor and council an update on PFAS, and then he spoke about vacancies. There are currently 99 vacancies in Tucson Water. Technical recruitments are proving to be a challenge. They have 32 active recruitments going and 24 pending new hires as of May 4th. They spoke about water demand, which was pretty much on target with previous years. There was a presentation by Blue Baldwin, the program manager for the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Project, which they're now calling Storm to Shade. And they have a CIP program to build green stormwater infrastructure in 6 City of Tucson wards. The GSI program is only within the city, and city ratepayers have a small surcharge on their bills every month to pay for this. So they identify areas needing these projects using equity and tree scores. They take input from the ward offices, And they currently have 23 projects in design right now in pre-construction, 2 projects in construction. And their designers are very busy. Part of the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Program also maintains these projects. And in February 2021, they engaged in a partnership with U of A to develop a maintenance protocol. They've received 3 grants for their program. There was also a discussion of the Conservation Program annual report. You can, the draft is on Tucson Water's website right now, which you can see. And we had a new appointee to CWAC to fill the Ward 2 vacancy, Roxana Valenzuela. That was the CWAC meeting. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Allison. Mark, you have a question for Allison?
Yeah, Allison, I was curious, and maybe this happened after the meeting, but did they discuss Tucson's Water potential decision to not take their full allocation and leave some of it as conservation for Lake Mead? I know
No,
that's been in the papers, and I don't know if that came up after this meeting or not.
it did come up after the meeting, so I anticipate we'll be hearing about it in June.
Great, thanks.
Okay, Allison, thank you. Allison and Mark, any additional questions for Allison on CWAC? Okay, hearing no additional questions. Next on the agenda is elections of officers. Who's running that?
Well, at the last meeting, it was mentioned that possibly Scott and Claire keep their roles as chair and vice chair for next fiscal year. And I believe you both said you'd be willing, so it's kind of up to the committee. If you just want to go ahead and make a motion today, or do you guys want to nominate someone else? Does someone else want to chair or vice chair? So it's for discussion.
So we have an open discussion right now. Does anybody have any comments about this? Do you want to have a nomination committee? Do you want to have anybody else want to run for a position? Or do you, through acclamation, the chair, the current chair and vice chair have also volunteered to continue in their same capacity? Steve, you have a comment?
Just a brief comment. I just want to thank you and Claire for the great job you've done this last year, and I've been very favorably impressed and more than happy to see you continue. Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have any other comments, concerns, or do you want to step up to the plate? Rob, are you going to be stepping up to the plate?
No, I'm stepping away from the plate, but I think you two have done also a wonderful job. And I don't know if we can actually do this or we have to wait until next time, but it says election of officers. I would move that we continue with the current chair and co-chair.
Second.
So that's a motion, and we have a second.
I would move we close nominations and take a vote by acclamation that they're in.
All right, thank you. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstains? And Steve and Rob, did you have any additional comments? I saw your hand still up.
Just thanks.
Okay. Sounds like the
You guys
nays.
are a tough
I
crowd.
mean, the ayes have it. So it looks like, Claire, you and I are on the dole for another year. Thank
All
you
right,
very
that's
much to everyone on the committee for your trust and in us and Claire. Me, I'm just a traffic cop, just running, the business meeting here, that's all. Okay, thank you very
Where's the
much.
victory celebration gonna be?
Well, the celebration is, I want to let everybody know, we do have an increase of attendees here in person of a grand total of 7. And it just feels a little lonely over here, so we would love to have maybe everybody migrate back here to the water campus. Or is this going to be the new normal? That's what I was mentioning to Jackson. Does anybody have any comments about any of that?
This is Allison. The numbers are going up right now. I was speaking with Terry Cullen about that yesterday. In my office, we had our first COVID case since this whole thing began, start yesterday. Things are just not going in the right direction for me to want to sit in a room with a lot of people, as much as I think you all are very nice people.
Claire, you had a comment?
Yeah, I love having the flexibility. I happen to be traveling this weekend, and any reduction of exposure I can have before traveling is really important to me. So, so I appreciate the flexibility. If I weren't traveling, I probably would be comfortable coming in, but I like that we can accommodate different people's sensitivities.
I have to make the additional comment too. It's wonderful being able to do remote, especially if you're on vacation in the country and all that. Also, just to let everybody know, Claire has volunteered to chair the June meeting. I will be out of country. And just to remind everybody, the month of July, there will be no meeting at all. Okay, so Anne Marie, you have a question?
Actually, I have a comment. I'm following up, I think, on Asia's comment. And I meet with the public health officials from the university and county every week because of a number of our grants. And the numbers are going up substantially. And so now is not the time to say we need to all come back to in-person meeting. It's a shame that they're going up. And they say if you actually look at the CDC site, we're actually at high transmission again. Even though they say it's low risk, if you actually look at the data, we're at high transmission rate again. So I would really like us to continue the flexibility for those of us who wish to do remote to continue remote and not have to come back to in-person meetings, because at this point, I'm encouraging all of our staff here as well not to go to large meetings unless we continue to require N95 or KN95 masks for group meetings. So unfortunately, the trend is going up, and the College of Public Health only sees it's unfortunately going to continue to go up. So that's my comment.
And Armando, you had a comment?
I also enjoy the flexibility of coming or going. Last month, I was attending while I was in Seattle. I like this flexibility because it offers an opportunity to continue traveling without having to return to Tucson just for a meeting. And besides that, it seems that my borough selection is a heck of a lot better than yours.
And Rob, you had a comment?
Yeah, I have a family member who had lung cancer and is missing part of his lungs. His pulmonologist told him that if he was exposed to COVID, he would die. He wouldn't have a chance. So I have to be very careful, and I want to be around my family, and at the same time, I want to keep everybody safe, including everybody in our committee. So I really prefer at this time attending remotely.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Well, Jackson, it's starting to sound like everybody would like to continue with the hybrid model.
Well,
Okay, You guys, miss out on all the burros that, Jackson bought over here. I guess I'll just have to eat them all. Okay.
One more comment from me. What I've noticed when I am out in the public is that there's a lot of
You got cut off, Armando. Could you say again, please? I guess we lost Armando. Okay, let's go into the next area, future agenda items. Did anybody have any comments, to have future agenda items?
We got the capital one that we talked about earlier, we got that on there.
Anne Marie, you have a question or a comment, for future agenda?
No, sorry, I didn't lower my hand.
Okay. Any additional, comments, items for the future agenda? Okay, hearing none, we go to the next, area, call to the audience. Is there any call to the audience? Okay, hearing none, we go, straight to adjournment. Just to remind everyone, Claire will be running the June meeting. I'm out of country, and everyone, you all get a month off, during the month of July. So do I have a motion for an adjournment?
I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any, nays? Any abstains? Okay, everybody go out there, be healthy, and, watch out for that heat, and just pray for the monsoon to come soon. Thank you for everyone attending today. Have a good day.
have a great month, everyone.
Thanks, you too. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Good to see you guys.